91.3 KDKR Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and 91.3 KYJC Commerce. Portions of KDKR's daily programming do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, what steps should you be taking if you are 1 to 3 years out from retirement? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a little bit of technical issues there, so sorry about all the time when we had dead air. Number to call if you've got a question today, 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open. Would love to hear from you, whatever is on. Good afternoon. You just got to laugh at it, Chris. Got to laugh at it. Chris just sent me a message that says, sorry, issues. Hey, if that's the worst thing that happens today, I'm doing pretty good. 1-877-913-5357. I was just waiting for that intro to come on, and there it came when it was not supposed to. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open and would love to hear from you today. Thought I'd take a break in talking about bear markets and the economy and everything that's going on and talk a little bit of retirement planning. In fact, I had a request for this subject, and I love to get your feedback and what you want to hear me address and talk about. So anytime that you have an idea, subject matter, just go to prudentmoney.com, send a question to the Ask Bob section, and let me know what's on your mind, and I'll be happy to address it. 1-877-913-5357. So when I talk about retirement planning, you have to know that I'm talking about it from a very high level and not specifically to your situation. Because if a retirement plan, which includes how you create income, which is all wrapped around with your risk level. If you're doing it correctly, it's very specialized and very specialized for your situation and customized. So what I'm talking about today, once again, is very general, and it's just so that you know exactly what you need to be considering, some ideas, some options, and then from there you should get with somebody who can walk you through it and get it to a specific plan for your needs. Let's first start talking about 5 years out. What's the critical time period to be considering how you are going to navigate your retirement plan? Let's start with 5 years out, because that's when really all this starts. And then you get 3 years out, which is even more of a critical time and really our focus today. The first thing that you have to put together is a spending plan that covers everything. Now, generally speaking, when I'm talking to people, they have a fairly good idea of what their spending plan is. I didn't say a budget. I'm talking about a spending plan, what you're actually spending or probably going to spend. And you got to consider everything. In fact, if you would like, I've got a comprehensive list of every possible thing you could spend money on. Just send me an email at the Ask Bob section at prudentmoney.com, and I will send you a copy of these categories. But you want to be able to cover everything. And one of the good things about, let me switch back to 5 years out. This is something that you start tracking, not budgeting, but just tracking your spending and where the money's going. Now, most people have a general idea of what they're spending. Some people, percentage of people have no idea what they're spending, and it's just a huge guess. And then 3, some have an idea of what they're spending, but they're kind of stuck because they don't know what the future brings for health insurance and health costs and that kind of thing, which we can cover that here in a minute. But build yourself a spending plan, and you definitely want to do this, have this done by 3 years out, so that you can work the spending plan for that time period before you get to retirement. But once again, everything from cost for grandkids, airline tickets, plane rides, travel, any type of traveling you're going to do. And of course, it's one of those things. It's a guess, but you want to pick it as if it were in today's dollars, not if it's in dollars with inflation built in 3 years from now. Most advisors can figure out that number for you and calculate that. But once again, you want to cover everything so that you can say specifically that I need, $5,000 a month, and it's going to pay for this, this, and this, and this, and this, and that that covers things like putting money back each month for Christmas spending and that kind of thing. It's one that Christmas and birthdays are generally not planned for ahead of time, and you want to learn the key to creating a good spending plan is to be proactive. And if you haven't been proactive in the past, you want to learn and develop the habit of being proactive. In fact, alongside a spending plan, you want to run another list of items that are potentially going to cost money that are coming up. So, for instance, say that there is you need to have someone come out and fix something in the house, an appliance or whatever, and it's going to cost $200 or $300. It's not quite to that point yet, but go ahead and jot that down, because you're going to have to make room in your spending plan for that somehow or another, or it goes to accumulate debt. One other thing that you want to shoot for, and this would be backing up more 10 to 15 years out, is that the possibilities of having your mortgage paid off by the time you get to retirement. That's also something important. And getting any miscellaneous debt paid off by the time you get to retirement. So first things first, get that spending plan put together so that you don't answer the question, so what do you think that you need at retirement? And you say $4,500 to $5,500. Well, is it $4,500? Is it $5,000? Is it $5,500? Or somewhere in between those numbers. So that's just one thing you don't want to guess on. You want to know specific. And you also want to know what your number is in 3 years. Meaning, if you need $5,000 a month, and what's the total number of accumulation of retirement dollars do you need in 3 years to take care of that? Of course, compensating for inflation and all those good things, but you definitely want to make sure that you have, say you need $500,000 as a number, then you want to make sure that you're on track. And I would suggest that at 3 years you want to be about 85% of the way there towards that goal. The next thing that you want to figure out and have figured out by the time 3 years is out is you want to know your Social Security strategy. Now, that can vary greatly between for any couple that you're talking to, in any situation or scenario. So you're looking at when you're going to take that Social Security payment, at what age. I talked to somebody last week that it made sense for the spouse, for the wife, to take hers to 62 and then the husband to take his at 67. Just so happened to work out that way. It rarely works out to where it makes more sense for them to take it at age 62, but it really depends on everything else. It's kind of like a credit score. Your credit score is specific to you because all the details are specific to you on that credit report that calculate together to bring the credit score. The same thing with Social Security. For some, it may make sense to take it at 62. For some, it may make sense to wait until age 70. But either way, you definitely want to get that strategy put together, and make sure also that you've considered whether or not the husband who dies first. I know those are unpleasant things to think about, but it's definitely things that you want to figure out ahead of time, so that your spouse, both of you, know exactly what's going to happen when that happens. Not if that happens, but when that happens. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open, and I'd love to hear from you if you've got a question or a comment. And then for those of you that are lucky to have a pension, and there's still a good percentage of people who have pensions, there's a couple of things that you definitely want to figure out. Number one, do you have the opportunity to take a lump sum payment versus taking the pension payment? So said another way, let's say that you had the option of taking getting $2,000 a month for the rest of your life versus $400,000. And the good thing about numbers is that you can run them both ways. The risk level also factors in there a little bit. Someone who's a little bit more risk averse would probably want to consider the payment more so than the lump sum. But you also have to consider the company. Is the company in good shape, going to probably stay in good shape and be able to make that pension payment? That's very important too, how the health of the company and the finances. And then most importantly, you got to figure on that pension payment. We'll jump to that on the other side of the break. 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back. Second, an investment that has consistently made money in past bear markets. And third, what steps to take today. In a 30-minute webinar presentation, I will take the complicated study of bear markets and make it relatable so anyone can understand. I'll be presenting this webinar 3 times the week of June 20th. This will give us just the right amount of time to learn what you need to know. Plus, we'll be doing a live Q&A at the end. Stay off of the investment roller coaster because you don't need to lose money in a bear market. To sign up, go to prudentmoney.com for more information.
I'm John Eder of Live the Word. I want to invite you to join me at 4:45 weekdays right here on KDKR 91.3 FM. We look at our world in light of what the Bible says the world's going to look like before Jesus Christ returns. And we answer some important questions, very practical questions about how do we live in a day like this. So join us, again, 4:45 p.m. right here, 91.3 FM, Bible School Radio.
What does it mean to be in the world but not of the world? How can we be engaged and involved in the culture without falling under its influence? And how can we resist the pressure to compromise? Friday on The Verdict, we're gaining key practical guidance from the life of Daniel. Don't miss the program. Friday on The Verdict.
Listen 10:30 a.m. on Bible School Radio 91.3.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. 1-877-913-5357. As you heard there, that in the middle of the program with this, the webinar that we've been doing. We did it Wednesday and did it today. Had great turnout. And one of the coolest things about everybody who came to see it is that they stuck around, didn't drop out. And watched it from beginning to end. I think it's because there's so much confusion created by pop culture finance on what a bear market is and how to survive and thrive in a bear market versus riding the investment roller coaster. So if you have missed the opportunity to attend either yesterday or tomorrow, or yesterday or today, you can attend tomorrow at 12 noon, and just go sign up at prudentmoney.com, and we'll see you there. We're going to talk about a lot of information that you need to know. In fact, consider this webinar as a foundation that we're going to build upon each month. My goal is to build a resource through prudentmoney.com to where you can go for information and get these questions answered, because you know exactly what you're looking for, what some of the resources that I'm in the middle of developing and putting out there. So this is going to introduce those, and I think it's going to be something good and definitely a good investment of your time. So go to prudentmoney.com. You'll see where to sign up. And if you have any issues, just send us an email at info@prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. We're talking about what to do, the steps to take between year 3 to year 1 before retirement. We made it down to pension. And by the way, if you missed the first part of the program, want to listen to it, you can go check out the podcast, which we post after the radio show, just within about 5-10 minutes after the radio show. And you can go listen to it at your leisure. That's all at prudentmoney.com and or wherever you like to listen to your favorite podcast. One last thought on the pension. If you take the lump sum, you can have the opportunity to preserve that lump sum for your children or whomever you want to leave your assets to. If you take the payment, that you don't have really that option. I mean, you can leave it to your spouse, but most pension plans, if something happens to the person who's receiving the pension plan, you can take a little bit less and get a 100% survivor type benefit, so that will come to your spouse. Then when your spouse passes away, it's all gone. So you can see there's kind of a pro and con with both situations. So the couple of things you have to do at this point is you know exactly how much you need on a monthly basis. So let's go back to our example of $5,000. So you got to come up with a growth rate. And this is where this gets really general, because it comes down to your risk level and your situation and how much income that you already have coming in and that kind of thing. But you're going to be looking at taking either 5 or 4% off of your investments to make your income work. And once again, that's specific to everybody's own particular situation. You want to have something in there based on to cover inflation, and then you also have to consider fees in there as well. So you put all that together, and that's your growth number. So let's say that you've got to make 7% total on your investments, and you've got to determine, is that something that's doable? And you have to determine if that fits your risk level to be shooting for 7% gross type of return or growth rate on your money. So let's start with some of the components of that income producing mechanism. First of all, not totally necessary, but it would be a great idea to have a lot of cash money in a savings account, because it's nice to know that, first of all, that you've got any major expense covered, But it also is nice to know that if there's a year where your investments are down or something has happened to where it wasn't producing the income, that you could take that money from another source. So cash can play a very pivotal part in the overall scheme of things. And then there, once again, and you're going to be surprised that I'm saying this, but CDs are starting to make a comeback. With interest rates going up, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. They're not quite there yet, but they could get there to a point to where it makes sense. You definitely want to, as you're building that income mechanism, you want to definitely double check and stay up with CD rates. Bonds are a mess. I talk about this on the webinar, and with interest rates going up, you know the relationship. Interest rates go up, bond prices go down, and that's what's been happening. And bonds are just not, at this point in the game, a good solution. Now, there is a bond substitute that you can consider that's guaranteed against loss through a state program, pays interest, has tax benefits that not all bonds have. It's good for a term. It's the interest rate's locked in for a term, and it's got some liquidity to it, but it definitely has enough liquidity that you can take the interest off of it. And that is a fixed annuity. I got to tell you, there's mixed reviews when it comes to fixed annuities and fixed index annuities, and rightfully so. And annuities have earned their bad reputation, but a lot of that's been fixed. A lot of that was based on what happened 15, 20 years ago, and I think that there's still only, in my opinion, a small percentage of products that are worth investigating and worth considering for your income plan. But the fixed annuity is paying over 4% now, guaranteed. And a fixed annuity runs just like a CD. So it's something that I would definitely, and it is a great substitute for a bond, definitely consider now that interest rates have gone up. I couldn't have said that about 4 or 5 months ago. But if they're paying between 4 and 5, especially when they get to 5, it's a no-brainer to make sure that that's part of it. And then you've got to create income. You have dividend-paying stocks. There's no doubt that there's a handful of dividend-paying stocks that you'd want to consider that are paying over 5%. To me, it doesn't make any sense to consider a stock if it's paying less than 5%. But if it's paying over 5% dividend, it is worth considering. But you also have to look at the fact that the volatility, you can lose a lot of the value of that stock, and you could lose it to the point to where things aren't so good for the company and they cut that dividend payment. Now, most dividend-paying stocks that have done so for decades will continue to do so, but you got to realize there could come a time when that stock may not pay that dividend, and because of that may have other problems that have affected the stock price, the value of the stock. And it's risk you want to be real careful with. Not to say the dividend stocks can't play a part, some percentage part, but it's you want to be real careful with it. Then there is managed money, and that's specifically a part of your overall retirement account that you have somebody manage stocks and different strategies to first of all to compensate for risk and to grow the overall portfolio. It kind of does the heavy lifting. That's where you take your risk, but that risk level has got to equal the income and the growth level that's going to be required to take the income. So, for instance, if you said I want $8,000 a month, but you have to make 9 to 10% to get it. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable doing that. It's an awfully high growth level for that kind of to produce the income that you want. So there's a lot of things to figure, but just know that this isn't any kind of cookie cutter thing that you can just put together. It's something that has to be customized and specific to a person's particular situation. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Remember to sign up for the webinar tomorrow, the last time we'll be doing it. I'm doing it live, have a live Q&A at the end. Just go to prudentmoney.com. If you got a question for me, please go to the website and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.